we've studied about the of a verb and the roles of a verb. From now on, we will study about the search of a verb. There are two search of a verb. The first one is general, and the other one is a be-verb. Let's start to study with the general verb. The general verb describes an experience, a condition, or an action of a subject in a clause according to the roles of the verb. The premise that the general verb describes the experience, condition, or action of the subject is that the subject exists. The fact that the subject is indicated by a noun or a pronoun, and the fact that the subject exists are in the relationship of necessity and sufficiency. In other words, that the noun or pronoun indicates a subject means that the subject exists, and that the subject exists means that the subject is indicated by the noun or pronoun. The subject indicated by a noun or a pronoun on the premise that the subject exists is described to exist by the general verb exist in a clause. For example, there is a clause, I exist. The speaker who wants to emphasize the fact that the subject exists, the existence of the subject with the verb, because the indication of the subject and the description about a subject are different. The preposition as classified as one of the adverbs forms the subject-object relationship with the object that is compatible with the subject. To define what the subject is, we study about a preposition as preceded to the class about the adverb. The preposition makes a relationship between a subject and an object, like a verb. But the preposition does not connote the tense between the present and the definition of the preposition happens. In this point of view, let's take a look at the example. I exist as a student. There is a preposition as added to the exemplary clause of the first one. I exist, the description of the preposition to describe the relationship between the speaker as a subject and an object indicated by a phrase of noun, a student, is equivalent to define an object. The preposition as and the object of the preposition a student describe the subject, the speaker. So this clause describes a condition of a subject who is the speaker of this clause. In this clause, we have to notice that the definition of the general verb is the same as the description of the existence of the subject, right? We will compare this phenomenon with of the be-verb. The general verb exist describes the existence of the speaker, and this clause describes the condition of the speaker with the subject, the speaker, and the object, a student. The be-verb describes the existence of the subject as a general verb exists. For example, there is a clause, I am. The be-verb am is one of the forms of the be-verb to describe the present existence. In this clause, the be-verb am describes the existence of the speaker, who is the subject. The definition of the be-verb is changed unlike the general verb, with the description about the subject by the subjective complement, the condition of the subject. With the subjective complement, what the subject is, who the subject is, or how the subject is. There is an example. You're happy. There is a subjective complement, happy, to how the subject, the listeners, are. In this class, the definition of the be-verb or is changed to describe the condition of the subject. The existence of the subject described by the be-verb is the general verb exist, whose definition is the same with the subjective complement, without the subjective complement. In this class, the phrase of the preposition as a student is the subjective complement to describe the subject, but the subjective complement describes the subject indirectly because the phrase of the preposition is a part of an adverb. So an adverb describes the description. The general verb exists, and the general verb exists describes the subject. So the phrase of the preposition describes the subject indirectly via the general verb exist. Compared to the clause with the general verb exist to describe the existence of the subject, the definition of the be-verb is changed from the existence of the subject to the condition of the subject. The clause with the subjective complement happy, this phenomenon can be understood with the fact that the be-verb has the trait of the adverb. The definition of the be-verb to describe the existence of the subject is changed to the condition of the subject with the adjective happy, how the subjects are. This phenomenon that the definition of the be-verb is changed can be understood with the fact that the be-verb has the trait of the adverb with the subjective complement. Let's study further about the trait of the adverb in the be-verb. The be-verb to include the trait of the adverb. The be-verb to describe the existence of the subject describes the condition of the subject because the be-verb specifies how the existence of the subject is. To obtain the trait of the adverb with the subjective complement happy. The examples are about the forms of the be-verb to describe plural subjects. The form of the to describe the existence of the subject or the be-verb to describe the speaker as a subject in the clause has the form of am. The form of the be-verb is describes the singular subject that is not a participant in the conversation with the speaker. The be-verb is a form of the be-verb to describe the existence of the singular subject that does not participate in the conversation with the speaker. From now on, we will study about the negative clause and the interrogative clause with the verb, general verb, or the be-verb. Before we start to compose a clause, a negative clause or an interrogative clause, let's start to study modal verbs. Did, do, does, and will. The definition of the modal verbs is this. The modal verbs did, do, does, and will describe the subject indirectly to describe the definition of the verb with the way to emphasize the definition of the verb. I do finish my homework. In this exemplary class, the modal verb do, the definition of the verb finish, and the verb finish describes the subject as the speaker of the clause. The modal verb do describes the subject, the speaker, indirectly. The emphasis by the modal verb is a way to describe the description of the verb. So we can assure that the modal verb is a part of an adverb. The modal verb do emphasizes the fact that the definition of the transitive verb finish happens at the present. The modal verb did to present the past tense. The role of the modal verb did is to present the past tense. The modal verb did describes the general verb with an emphasis on the definition of the general verb to happen in the past. There is an exemplary clause, I did finish my homework. The modal verb did emphasizes the definition of the transitive verb finish happened in the past. The speaker who does not emphasize the definition of the verb finish in the past describes the verb with the verb finish it to reveal the past tense of a clause. But the speaker wants to emphasize the definition of the verb happened in the past. So the modal verb to indicate the tense with the modal verb did and the verb finish are separated. The general verb stays in its original form because the original form means the form of the verb in the present tense. The general verb stays in its original form because the modal verb did signifies that the definition of the general verb happened in the past when the conversation with the speaker did not take place instead of the general verb. The modal verb do or does to present the present tense to reveal the present tense, the number of the subject, and the role of the subject in the conversation. The modal verbs do and does describe the definition of the general verb with the emphasis on the definition of the general verb to happen at the present when the conversation with the speaker takes place. There is an exemplary clause. He does finish his homework. The speaker emphasizes that the definition of the transitive verb finish happens at the present when the conversation with the speaker happens. So the speaker separates the modal verb does to reveal that the subject is singular and a non-participant in the conversation, and the verb finish compared to the modal verb do to describe the plural subjects or the participants in the conversation. The modal verb does signifies that the subject is a non-participant in the conversation. The modal verb will to present the future tense has the role to reveal the future tense. The modal verb will describes the general verb and the be-verb whose definitions are supposed to happen in the future when the conversation with the speaker is not going to happen. There is an exemplary clause. She will finish her homework. The modal verb will describes and emphasizes the definition of the verb finish, to happen in the future with uncertainty. So the speaker wants to express the expectation, the definition of the verb finish to happen, because the modal verb will as a noun has the definition of expectation. The general verb finish does not signify the number of the subject and the role of the subject in the conversation with the speaker, because the modal verb will is applied in a clause with the be-verb. The modal verb will to present the future tense with the be-verb has a role to reveal the future tense as well. The modal verb will has a role to present the future tense. So the be-verb described by the modal verb will stays in its original form of the be-verb, be, not to signify the number of the subject and the role of the subject in the conversation with the speaker. There is an exemplary clause. Everyone will be happy. The subject considered to be one is described with a be-verb described by the modal verb will. This clause is about expected future condition of the verb to convey the definition that is certain to happen in the future is stated with the present tense in the clause. Like this exemplary clause, the earth revolves around the sun. So the description with the modal verb will emphasizes that the definition of the verb is expected to happen in the future.